I'm Leandra Letterman,
And I'm Allison Christians.
and it's time to break into tax. We're very pleased to have here with us today Richard Zuckerman, the former Acting Assistant Attorney General of the Tax Division of the Department of Justice. He joined the Tax Division in December 2017 as the division's Principal Deputy Assistant Attorney General, where he was the head of the Tax Division. He began his legal career as a trial lawyer with the Justice Department's Organized Crime and Racketeering section in the Detroit Strike Force. So we're very pleased to have him here with us today on Break Into Tax.
I can start out with a background of why there's a tax division and what it's supposed to be doing, and the interactions with the Internal Revenue Service. The tax division was formed in about 1933, and it was formed because by then the IRS code had become somewhat complex, although not as complex as it is today. And tax collection at the time was spread out among various other divisions of the government. And the administration at the time thought that because of the complexity of the tax laws and the non-uniformity of tax enforcement, it would be good to consolidate that. And so the tax division was formed and became effective either January 1st of 33 or 34, and has been operating since that period of time as one of the main trial divisions of the Department of Justice. The division is divided into substantive areas, and the substantive areas are then subdivided geographically. It consists of approximately 350 to 400 lawyers, depending on how hiring is going, and 150 support staff. And we basically have one client, and that's the Internal Revenue Service. And we work very closely with the service, both with respect to criminal enforcement, which I can describe in a little more detail later, also civil litigation, and also with respect to setting the policies and goals of the service and the administration with regard to tax enforcement. And we also work somewhat with the Department of Treasury through the IRS Chief Counsel, who is the lawyer for the Internal Revenue Service. So that is, the background of the IRS and us. If you'd like me now to get into more detail about how the tax division operates, I'd be happy to do that. The tax division has an assistant attorney general, but that spot has been vacant since 2014. In the absence of an assistant attorney general, which is a person nominated and confirmed by the Senate, there's a principal deputy assistant attorney general who has been running the division in lieu of the AAG. And since December 2017, that's been me. I am assisted by 3 deputy assistant attorney generals, one for civil litigation, one for policy and planning, and one for civil appeals. There's also a 4th deputy assistant attorney general for criminal matters, but I was dual-hatted, so I served both as the deputy assistant attorney general for criminal matters and the principal deputy assistant attorney general and the actual head of the division. On the criminal side, there are 4 sections, 4 trial sections, 3 of which are geographic. The Northern Criminal Enforcement Section, the Southern Criminal Enforcement Section, and the Western Criminal Enforcement Section. And then a section called CATEPS, C-A-T-E-P-S, which is Criminal Appeals and Tax Enforcement Policy Section. Basically, they are the lawyers that handle criminal appeals.
Don't you have any crimes in the East? Your geographic centers seem to be missing a section of the country.
No, the eastern part is handled by the Northern Criminal Enforcement Section.
So not too much crime in the North and the East. Most of the crime is in the West and the South.
Right, exactly. On the civil side, that's also handled by a deputy assistant attorney general, and there are more sections. There's the Eastern, Northern, Southern, Western, and Southwestern. There's 5, and each of them are headed by a section chief. So there is some civil litigation in the eastern part of the country. The main function of the civil litigation is basically defensive, in the sense that civil litigation handles all of the appeals that come out of the U.S. tax court. Lawyers that go to the U.S. tax court are IRS lawyers. They're not Department of Justice lawyers. The Department of Justice attorneys in the tax division do not litigate in the tax court. Generally speaking, lawyers in the IRS litigate only in tax court, although on occasion some are appointed as special assistant U.S. attorneys, which on an anachronism basis are called sauces. We handle the appeals from the tax court, whether it's the government appealing or the taxpayer appealing. The civil section also does affirmative litigation in that they handle the foreclosure matters for the IRS. They handle civil injunctions when it comes to basically tax return preparers who are rogue, and the remedy is deemed to be best suited would be an injunction. So they handle that kind of injunctions. They also do all of the FOIA defense for the Internal Revenue Service. That takes up a considerable amount of time and energy. There is a separate civil appellate section that is headed by another Deputy Assistant Attorney General. And under that Deputy Assistant Attorney General is both review and appeals. The review section is intermediary between the trial lawyers and the appellate lawyers. And the review section also handles the analysis of settlements. So any settlement proposed goes through review, and depending on the amount, it may come to me or it may not. And then there's the policy section, which is handled by a separate Deputy Assistant Attorney General, and it's policy and planning. And basically, that section does what it sounds like. The division does not get involved in the writing of statutes and is not sought out on many occasions by Congress for its input, although on occasion the division will be sent drafts of legislation to comment when someone believes that the legislation would have some impact on tax enforcement. And on occasion, the division is asked to submit up the chain its suggestions for either amending legislation or for new legislation. One thing that's consistently been advocated over the years is to make failure to file a felony and not a misdemeanor. And so that's the kind of thing that the division would submit up the chain if it's asked for its suggestions for enhancing tax enforcement and what kind of legislation would be suited for that. So that is kind of an overview of the organization. What's interesting about the tax division, it's only one of two divisions in the United States that has nationwide authority, the other being the antitrust division. So when I mean nationwide authority, I mean that there isn't any tax prosecution in the country that can be initiated without the authorization of the tax division. Grand jury investigations, by and large, are authorized by the tax division, but there's a directive that exists that allows the IRS to make direct referrals of investigations to a U.S. Attorney's Office. But if the U.S. Attorney's Office conducts an investigation, then that means a grand jury investigation. Then if it wants to indict, it has to come to the tax division in the geographic section that has cognizance over the particular U.S. Attorney's Office.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Fabulous.
Very nice, and thank you for having me.
This is just part of the interview that we did with Richard Zuckerman. Stay with us and watch the next video in the playlist. Thank you for joining us as we break into tax.